What I can do, I should first of all say that this is absolutely informal discussion. It's not advice at all that you should rely on. Um, so I'm sure as a lawyer you understand that
Absolutely.
distinction.
No, of course, Richard, of course. Just, and
It's just
thank you just for your time,
It's just some initial thoughts.
Yeah.
One important question is, who are the tribunal deciding this?
Oh, no, that's right. Yes. So Krista Lee was nominated by NEOM, and the chairman is Riaz Hussein. And the arbitrator that we nominated is David Outerbridge. David sits as a partner and head of litigation at Torys in Canada. I'm in Vancouver most of the time. And
so they're all common lawyers who will have precisely no idea about Saudi Sharia law. So all you actually need to do is put forward some sort of internally consistent and sensible interpretation of Sharia. They are likely to say, well, that makes good sense, and we'll look at the overall merits. I sit a lot as an arbitrator, and the merits drive most arbitrations.
Yes.
They can see the general fairness is that you should be paid for what you did, and that they're relying on the lack of a bond as an excuse to get out of a contract that they're no longer happy with, then the results are likely to follow from that, provided you can give them some intellectually coherent basis under Saudi law for going down that route. I should mention that Krista Lee is in my chambers, so if I was to be involved, that would be a potential conflict of interest. If this was in the UK, you'd say, well, that's not a conflict at all. In the Middle East, people like to cause trouble and raise these things unnecessarily. So that might be a problem for my involvement. But I think because you have a tribunal with that background, and certainly I know Riaz Hussein and Krista Lee very well, and they're very experienced construction lawyers, you're far better off than if you had some random Saudi lawyers who had no real idea about construction contracts, in which case you'd be as well off tossing a coin. White Case, I like Play Hard. I know them very well. They appear in front of me in a lot of arbitrations in the Middle East. They tend to be quite stretched in terms of resources. So I wouldn't necessarily...
I thought you were going to say in terms of mental capacity.
Well, so what you might find is that the arguments they advance are not terribly well considered, simply because they haven't had someone senior enough to spend enough time.
I've actually noticed that.
So that would also work to your advantage, because you're not likely to be coming across a fully developed and coherent Saudi position in defence to your claims. So I would have thought, given that tribunal, you don't necessarily need Saudi lawyers to represent you, and someone, a sensible firm in, say, Dubai with experience of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East might be perfectly adequate.
So the parties' intention, reflected through supporting evidence, this is the requests to proceed, as a coherent discussion, work its way beyond the four corners of the contract stated.
Broadly, yes, that's certainly the case in the UAE and the other Middle Eastern countries that have civil code based on
It's
French
a civil
law.
Um, approach. Yes, it's not.
They're civil and Sharia based, so it's certainly consistent with Sharia law. There's no reason why a very different approach should be applied in Saudi Arabia, or why you couldn't persuade this tribunal that it's an appropriate approach.
Yeah.
And it's certainly inconsistent with basically the religious nature of Saudi law, that if the parties can evidence that they intended something, but the contract says something different, that the words of the contract should apply and not what the parties actually meant.
Yeah.
It certainly makes coherent sense to approach it in that way.
Yeah. I have been to the main litigation practice groups, the international firms, they've politely bowed out. I might step down a notch, but the international firms tend to be the heavyweights. If a practice group or a firm more generally in the region, maybe in Saudi, the Riyadh office, for instance, comes to mind, I would be extremely grateful, because the reality is I'll need help drafting up the pleadings. I need to put this on all fours. The skeleton. I
In
just
terms of lawyers, I think Clyde and Co are the leading.
they've said no.
Yeah, that doesn't entirely surprise me. Then, yeah, look at the Dubai firms. Most
Sure.
of the law firms that do work in Saudi Arabia, they do the work out of Dubai anyway. So they
Yeah.
have a couple of lawyers doing some low-level stuff in Riyadh, but the
Yes.
main capacity is in Dubai.
Is in Dubai.
And, and you don't necessarily need, by the sounds of things, the biggest firm
No.
on the planet.
That's
you
right.
need, I think, someone with good construction experience, and it'll come down to the individuals rather than the brand on the door.
We're it's going to sound strange, but we're actually intentionally hemming up a David and Goliath, and I like coming in as just the Don Quixote up against the giant teeth and of white encased in the Saudi government. I'm intention. Oh, don't tell Krista this, by the way. But I'm positioning it this way, so it's good to have. Well, that's great, Richard. Thank you.
I do need to wrap up pretty soon.
Thank you.
I'm afraid. Something else I need to be doing. But is there anything else you wanted to discuss before?
No.
Close off for now. Good. Well, I hope that's been of some help.
Might I get back into? So would you like to bow out of this with Krista?
That's up to you. I mean, I don't think I should do anything more without formal instructions, preferably from a law firm. And if you wanted to go down that route for advice, we could do that.
Yeah.
But I think just bear in mind that if you wanted representation longer term, there might be an issue with Krista's involvement.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Richard. Have a good evening. All right.
Good.
Thank you.